ESTPs, everyone's favourite lovable rogues. ESTPs are designed to cause impact. Types with extroverted sensing as their dominant function fall into two groups. Ones that intentionally cause an impact, and ones who do it by accident. I've noticed a tangible difference in a room when they've walked in. Now, I'm always conscious about stretching personality types beyond practicality into pseudoscience. But I think it's because SE DOMs take in their physical environment so effortlessly and don't really miss a thing. It makes people sit up and become more aware of their own movements and behaviours. They can zoom in on you and put you under their SE microscope. They also have an elegance to their movement. They rarely look awkward or out of place, which, by comparison, can make others feel awkward and out of place. If there's anyone that you know and think is an ESTP or ESFP, watch the effect they have on other people when they walk into a room. I believe simply by virtue of their presence, they have impact. By contrast, there are other personality types that can come and go and disappear without anyone noticing. But it goes deeper than this. Extroverted sensing is fundamentally a disruptive force. It likes to stir things up or create imbalance. Now, that sounds like a negative thing, but sometimes things need to be shaken up because they've become stale and they need that injection of energy. Being static and stagnant is kind of unbearable for an ESTP. Something chaotic or even dangerous is preferable to something predictable. Extroverted sensing is concrete, realistic, grounded, unpretentious. When it exists in tandem with introverted thinking, it has this concise clarity to it, which you see with both ESTPs and ISTPs. When I think of the SE-TI axis, I think of the most famous, in my opinion, ESTP. It's just occurred to me that most of the people watching this video are American and will probably have a different person in mind. The person that comes to my mind is Sherlock Holmes. Now, he is, I think, the most played character in history, and also one of the characters that many intuitive types like to claim. And because there's so many versions, there are quite a few versions that could easily be intuitives. But I think the core of the character is ESTP, much like the author Arthur Conan Doyle, who is also usually typed as an ESTP. Sherlock Holmes espouses a mantra of observing and deducing. This represents the SE-TI axis very well. You are taking in sensory information and analysing it through the filter of introverted thinking. Sherlock Holmes, albeit fictional, is a fantastic representation of what is possible with those two functions. He's having these huge intuitive realizations, but they actually come from the almost brute force analysis of huge amounts of data. It just shows the power of going into a situation with your eyes open and not just seeing, but observing, as opposed to being more in your head. Masters of the moment. Although I have said in a previous video that despite having many benefits, the idea of everyone trying to aim to live in the moment, I think is quite a bad idea, because it just doesn't suit most people and won't serve most people well. There are many types that actually feel happier and more comfortable thinking about the past or the future, or both. But for ESTPs, it works very well. So how do ESTPs master the art of living in the moment? Extroverted sensing enjoys reactive environments and situations. I think that's what explains the stereotype of ESTPs being sportspeople. It's less about their propensity for physical aptitude, which in theory any type can develop, but more their desire to react and adapt in the moment. They want to make a decision and see an immediate impact. If you contrast this to types with, for example, introverted intuition as their top function, so INTJs and INFJs, who can be very planful, sometimes years into the future. and also struggle with overstimulation and not really enjoying fast-paced, reactive environments. It has to do with the time frame over which actions happen. ESTPs want to take an action and see an immediate result, or as immediate as they possibly can. Long-term plans require commitment, being systematic, sometimes repetitive. Executing a long-term plan, in a word, is boring. And worse than this, you actually have to actively ignore all of the opportunities you'll be seeing en route to your goal. Constricting yourself in this way is like death for an ESTP. So to solve this problem, they simply place themselves in situations where they have to make quick and reflexive decisions. Ones where the consequences are immediate. Anything that requires analysis and action is very attractive for an ESTP. Both ENTPs and ESTPs have kind of a roguish charm to them, seducing and offending in equal measure. But I've noticed with both of those types that although they hide it sometimes, or manifest it in a warped way, they do actually care a lot. Especially about concepts like fairness, or justice, or meritocracy. Having third slot FE is interesting because it affords them a level of empathy and a desire to create harmony, but it also makes them very good at knowing what other people want or are motivated by. Now, that leads to a lot of options. One is simply to give the person what they want, which is nice. One is to intentionally not give it, and the other is to manipulate, the deal maker. As a result of this extroverted feeling, it makes them very well placed to make deals. They can visualize win-win situations quite easily, and by default, that is what they'll aim for. But if they can't get win-win, they'll get win-lose, with them coming out on top. ESTPs have introverted feeling as their polar function, or in a sense their worst function. I've mentioned this previously in quite a few videos on ENTPs. ESTPs can struggle to know what they actually want, like what is meaningful to them. Even the concept of something being meaningful to them could be quite alien for a while. Mature ESTPs will eventually figure this out later in life, but there could be a whole host of what seem like, in retrospect, kind of inexplicable decisions. Whether that's getting into a relationship with someone only to realize that you didn't really like them that much, or having a job that you feel the same way about. Both ESTPs and ENTPs with FI polar have this strange paradox of being kind of able to do almost anything they want to, but ultimately not really knowing what they want to do. ESTPs are reasonable people in a world where everyone thinks they're logical and rational, but so often aren't. They are exponents of the most ironically named concept, common sense.